What's up, Brainiacs? I know you look outside and it looks like the whole world's coming to an end. Rest assured it's not. These are tumultuous times, no doubt. But don't worry about it. Blabber Brains is going to walk you through it. Let's do this.
Blabber Brains.
All right, we're back. I promised you and I threatened you would be back, and we're back. Welcome to Blabber Brains Show, and we are your host. I'm Michael Kadri, and the clown to the left of me, or Joker to the right, whichever way you're looking at, is the Big M, Mark Anthony. And all the feedback I kept getting from our last show was we need more of Mark. So I guess you didn't talk a lot, but so everybody says we need more Mark. It's just it's hard when you got a guest on the show and you want to try to divvy up the conversation. Tom is just engaging to talk to, and he was just on a roll, so you kind of just got to let him go with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I didn't know a lot about Tom going into it either, and I should have done some homework because I saw a little bit of information on him, read a little bit, saw a few photos, and then I didn't realize once he started talking. Obviously, you guys know each other pretty well, but he started going into things that I was just shocked. I didn't realize that he was talented in so many different areas. So I had nothing to contribute. I'm like, oh, he did that. Oh, you're doing this. I couldn't say anything because it was just like if I was at home and I had my earbuds on and I was just listening to the record. Oh, I was thrown off by it. I was actually pleasantly shocked.
Oh yeah, he's definitely multi-talented. Just in everything he does, and he's just a great guy, good to talk to. It's a lot of fun to talk to, and you're just a guy with a big heart. And I think that's just because he's one of those artist type, and of course they're always very connected to people, and just a blast to talk to. So we appreciate having him on. And we're going to have guests like that on from time to time, probably more often than not. But oftentimes it's just good to get back to basics, which is you and I just bantering about, blabbering about, talking about whatever's coming off the top of our cranium. And it's just the whole basis of what you and I like to do is we don't like to get too serious. We like to try to keep things a little more lighthearted. I think that's what people like about this show, is that we have serious conversations, but don't get uber uptight about everything. But just in today's time and everything that's going on, it's hard to find something to laugh about. You need some sort of escape. Maybe this show can be the people's escape. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'd rather be doing this right now than, right now, I guess the 10 o'clock news is coming up and I don't want to watch it. I've seen enough. I work from home and I have a TV on in the background much of the time. It's not up loud, but it's usually something that's going to be news or something where there's a lot of talking, where if I have to get on a call real quick or somebody calls in, that I don't have the theme from the Brady Bunch in the background. It actually has it sounds a little more professional. And
right.
Man, I'm to the point now where I think you made a reference on Saturday about going up into space. They had the right idea, because
they got out just in time, man.
Yeah, a few hours later, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's been a bigger mess since. I thought we would be talking about how things are starting to open up a little more. And even though there's still a threat and everything with the coronavirus, I figured things would be a little more lighthearted. And now all of a sudden, just like, wow.
And how did we skip over the murder hornets? There were supposed to be murder hornets. What happened to them?
I never really read anything about them, but somebody told me that
there were warnings saying they were coming.
That they found a couple of them dead here in the U.S. What was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Maybe I have that wrong, but I thought it was something that was not even anywhere near being a threat as of right now, and I thought maybe they were just trying to.
I just think that they're trying to throw everything but the kitchen sink. Now they're saying that there's an asteroid headed towards Earth that's going to narrowly miss us, this year. There was an earthquake at Yellowstone Park, near their, volcano. Just like, what else is going to happen? These are the signs of Armageddon. It seems it's just, 2020 is a wacky year, man.
Yeah, those guys on Mountain Men, if you ever watch that TV program on the History Channel, I think they're right. They're already out in the middle of nowhere, and they're living off the grid, and they seem to be doing quite fine. I'm getting to the point now with everybody arguing, fighting, the politics, everything might not be a bad idea. I'm sure there's a lot of people who know me who would prefer me to be like one of the Mountain Men. Get out of here, get out of Western Pennsylvania and go up into the hills somewhere and just
me, I'd rather head to a beach somewhere. I'd rather go down to Aruba or Roatan or someplace like that and just unplug, be in the warmth, have my toes in the sand with a drink in my hand, and just unplug from reality. It's so hard. And I think the hardest, there's two things that are really hard about this for me, and possibly for you as well. Number one, you and I are both pretty optimistic guys. We're pretty positive, upbeat.
I am.
I think you are. You've always been.
I thought it was Debbie Downer. Like, how you doing? Oh, geez, I think we're all going to die tomorrow. The boat, somebody's going to set off the boat.
Okay, well, maybe you offset your downer with your comedy and your jovial. Maybe that's why you'd like to joke around to offset it. But me, I'm usually pretty positive outlook kind of guy. And so when I see all this negative, it affects me. It affects me strongly because, like, I try to combat things with, I make positive posts, and with all these negative stories, I try to make positive posts, and it just seems like, and I, even when I post positive things, there's people hijacking the post to bring it down and say negative things, and it's just like, what is wrong with this world? Why do people have to be angry and miserable and mad and all this stuff? And it's so hard for me. And the other part that's hard is, is being a pragmatic independent, where I can look at both sides and I have criticisms of both sides, because in today's world, there's no such thing as truth anymore. What is truth? There's actually things that are true. There's physical things that you can see, feel, touch, and hear, and they're real. Like this glass of wine is a real glass of wine. I can see it. I'm drinking it. I know it's wine. But if I put this out on the internet and say, here's my glass of wine, it's like 50% of the people will say, no, that's orange juice. And the other 50% of the people say, no, that's a glass of water. And both sides will argue back and forth with each other that they're right. It's definitely wine. I know it's wine, So but in today's world, it's like, even as far as Trump goes, if you don't love him fully, then you hate him. And if you don't hate him fully, then you love him. Well, why can't you just judge the guy based on who he is and the job he's doing? Why does it have to be one, like all or nothing?
I think I think it's kind of, I don't know, me personally, I think he's kind of playing it that way. It works. He's pretty good at keeping, most presidents will win with 40, 42, 43% of the votes in November, especially now, because you always have a Libertarian Party, a Green Party, Party World or whatever it is. And you add all those people together and you get maybe a 5, 7, 8% of the vote. So I think it's just the way that, I think it's part of the strategy that takes place. And I just think that once you put somebody off, if you say the wrong thing, especially nowadays, you say the wrong thing, it stays out there. Years ago, you could do something, you could go and bomb another country and it might not even make it onto the news until a year later. Today, you go outside and you get an ice cream cone at Rita's and you go to take a bite and it falls on the ground and hits you on your foot. There's somebody there with their camera. Oh, that's funny. And there it is on Facebook. So now you can't, you can't get away with anything. And the thing is that years ago, you could say, if you talk long enough, just like I do here, if you talk long enough, something stupid's going to come out of your mouth. And a lot of times Yeah, and what ends up happening sometimes when you have someone who likes to talk all the time, who wants to control the show, who wants to have the spotlight all the time, sooner or later, something stupid's going to come out of your mouth, or you're going to say something that really isn't that true, and it's easily found because there's just archives of everything out there. You could find photos from 20 years ago. There's just nowhere to, it's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to hide. I think the days of being squeaky clean or even coming across squeaky clean on a national or even at a state level it's impossible. There's always something.
But even that, it's not going to matter. Even if we could have the most pragmatic presidential candidate in the world come up who is nice to both sides, who has great ideas that could make both sides happy. As long as they've got that letter after their name, they're going to be evil to one side or the other.
Oh,
so as long as they have a D or an R after their name, it's not going to matter what they do, what kind of job they do, what kind of ideas they have, what kind of person they are. They're going to be deemed as evil by the other side. And is that where we're at? It's like all or nothing. I mean, we've as a country, we've been divided for years. I mean, look, we had a civil war back, 150 years ago, an actual civil war where the whole country was divided that much. We've always been divided, but it's just, why does it seem different now? I mean, I watched the progression from ever since Clinton was impeached. It's almost like it was going to be, well, it doesn't matter who the next president is. We're going to impeach that next president. And they tried with Bush, with the whole election. They tried to impeach him, saying it was illegitimate. But then when that wasn't popular with the people, and then they let that go, and then 9/11 happened, and everybody rallied behind them, and then they just lost the ability to impeach him. And now that Trump's in, it's like before he got in office, we're like, well, we're just going to impeach him. People think this has everything to do with Trump. It has nothing to do with Trump. It has everything to do with because of the fact that he won two things. First of all, he beat Hillary, which they didn't think, and number two, that they just wanted Hillary so bad, and they thought that she was going to be coronated in there. But the other side of that is because of Bill Clinton got impeached. So if an independent would have won, there would have been they would have been angry because Hillary didn't win, but there wouldn't be I'm going to get even with them because he's not a Republican. At least that's how I feel. I don't think but this is all about, we're going to get even. And so now what happens is the rank and file people, not talking about Washington people, I'm talking about the voters, the people that pay attention to politics, whatever, have dug their heels in so much that they are in whatever the Democrat Party says. If you're a liberal, you follow it to the T. Liberals own 90%, control 90% of the media. Social media, the news, newspapers, whatever the outlet is, they have 90% of it. Conservatives, they have their small outlets, but it doesn't matter what's being fed to them. No matter what conservative outlet, whether it's Breitbart or Fox News or Blaze Media or whatever, whether it's true or not, they believe it hook, line, and sinker. And all the 90% of the liberal media, they believe it hook, line, and sinker. Now, I did some thoughts about this too, because I see this bantering back and forth too about being brainwashed. Both sides think the other side's brainwashed. And I can almost understand why liberals think that conservatives are brainwashed. And that is because the fact that the liberal media controls 90% of everything, right? So if you're a person and you don't pay attention to everything, you're not pragmatic, and you're not looking at both sides, you're only looking at your own side, you can turn on one channel after the next, after the next, after the next, and look on social media and read newspapers, and you're seeing all the same news. Everything matches up with each other because they're all in lockstep. So to you, that's your world. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not, that's your world. And so the other side of that is, if you're not buying into that, if you're not believing that, then you must be brainwashed, or you're an idiot, or the name calling starts, whatever. So it doesn't matter. And then the other side, like I said, with the conservative side, they're thinking you guys are clearly brainwashed because 90% of the information you have that's coming to you is fake information. It's false information. So you're brainwashed into thinking that it's real. We're at a stalemate. We're at a complete stalemate. And I think that the only reason that this news stuff comes out, that the news that comes out is not meant for the people who are already paying attention, because they've dug their heels in. They're not budging one way or the other, right? The staunch, there's nothing that a conservative can post and they do this a lot, and I still scratch my head over it. They post all these positive things about Trump, right? There's nothing you're going to post that's going to make a liberal go, maybe I got to rethink my thoughts on Trump. Maybe he is not that bad. They're not thinking that. And then the liberals the same way. They post all this negative things about Trump. Are they thinking that somewhere along the line a conservative is going to say, wow, I didn't know that. I haven't figured out all along. There's maybe like 1% of the people that they will buy into that. They're a little weak-minded or whatever, and they'll sway one way or the other. But for the most part, if you're a Democrat, you're not buying the good stuff. If you're a Republican, you're not buying the bad stuff. So why put that stuff out there at all? It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, ratings, people watching, money, advertising. When you started even talking about things starting with Bill Clinton, right at that time is about when technology started advancing, where we weren't using smartphones, but there was a lot of internet use, and that now everybody has a voice. I mean, can you imagine us 20 years ago doing something like this to put on the internet? I'd have to call you, and then we'd have to have a tape recorder with that little suction cup thing that you put on the receiver to record both of us on a cassette, and then try to do something.
And it would be delivered in real media, 320 by 240, and it'd be this little postage stamp of a video.
Right. And I think the big thing is, I mean, look, there's been all kind of scandals for years. I mean, John F. Kennedy would have he'd never be able to get away with all the stuff that he did in today's time. Same with even when you go back, even with Richard Nixon. I mean, I'm sure if you go back and look and you see some of the things that were going on towards the end of the Vietnam War, I don't remember the specifics, but I remember reading where they were bombing somewhere. They were bombing another area and not telling the media, letting anybody know what was going on. And it did have something to do with them ending the war and having him end the war. But I mean, the things that he did, that you just could could get away with a lot more. There were people shut up. People weren't speaking out about things. There was no way to record somebody, everything they do. Now you have a cell phone, and I mean, as much as recording video and even what's going on right now, I mean, years ago, there's probably things were even worse than what we're all fighting and bitching about today. It just wasn't out there to be seen. I mean,
the internet has definitely made that news more prevalent, and in some instances it's made it good and it's made it worse, because and here's my other contention, especially with Trump, and I've said this right from the time that he got elected. I said that the media is actually going to help him get reelected, because they lie about things he says or twist things he says, and you don't need to. Just let Trump be Trump, okay? Sometimes he says the right thing, but the majority of times he's putting his foot in his mouth and he's saying something bombastic and horrendous and whatever. And just let those words speak for themselves. You don't need to make things up. But the problem is, when you make them up and then you get busted on it, now people are jaded about everything that you're putting out there, because they say, oh, it's fake news, fake news, fake news. And they still haven't learned their lesson. They're still to this day taking things and editing them to make him sound worse. Like, why? You don't need to do that. That's just, that's mind-boggling to me. And so whenever they get busted, then it just keeps piling up and piling up and piling up. It's just report on the guy and on who he is, and you would still get the same results.
Well, the thing is, but nowadays in politics, I mean, come on, there's been many things that he said that are proven that it was a lie, and they go, oh well, it didn't matter anyhow. Same thing, you could say the same thing with Obama. You could say the same thing with Bush. But the thing is, like I said earlier, if you keep talking too much, if you talk too much, and you always have to kind of have to be the one that's always in the spotlight, not let the other people who are involved with things, let them talk. You always got to talk over them. Sooner or later, and it doesn't matter how smart you are, sooner or later you're just going to say something that sounds stupid, because you sort of babble on. You run out of things to say, and sometimes what you would be thinking in your head which isn't realistic, it comes out of your mouth. It's just a mess. It's just a
And the
mess
cameras
all
are
the way
always
around.
rolling. The cameras are always rolling.
No doubt, nothing's off the cuff anymore.
Right. So I don't know. I don't know that we'll ever get out of this other than, and I, believe it or not, Dennis Miller was saying something the other day on a talk show that everything he was coming out of his mouth sounded like it was coming out of my mouth. And one of the things he said, he says, with a straight face, and something that I've been saying even for a while, he's like, I just think it's time to start divvying things up. And the guy's like, well, what are you talking about? He goes, it's time to just bust this country up and just start divvying up the states. You know, you get this side, you get that side, whatever. Maybe it's not sides, maybe it's states, whatever, just whatever. And I think that's what we've come to. I don't think that we will ever unite as a country. Put it this way: if this COVID or any like the Black Lives Matter or anything like this can't unite this country, then or a good strong economy that was going on. If these type of things can't unite a country, then we're beyond uniting. There's nobody that's going to step into office. I don't care how pragmatic they are. I don't care if they're an independent. If they get along with both sides, if they've got great ideas, you know, that person is, you know, first of all, as an independent, you're never going to get elected. Second of all, if you have a D or an R after your name, you're just going to get deemed as you know, as evil by one side or the other. So I think the only thing that's really left is to start, you know, having the states secede. I mean, and I don't even know where you start from that. It just has to start with one state saying we're out of here. But what's the solution? How do you unite? How do you unite everything? Do you have still hope that they unite, or do you just say, you know what, it's just time to bust it up and start something over again?
I think even if something bad or something serious happens, we'll unite, but once it passes, things will just go back to what I think the only way this country or even the world itself is going to unite is if some Martians started coming down from outer space and starting to blow things up. And now we have to go and we have to fight these Martians to save the planet or to save the country.
Wasn't that what happened with Independence
maybe
Day?
everybody will, maybe everybody will pull together now, but I just don't, it's very difficult to think that it's going to stay a mess. I mean, we're getting older. So, you know, in another, you know, if once you're into your mid 60s or you're retired or whatever, you know, most things that take place don't have that great of an impact on your life. But how about like your kids who are, you know, you have daughter going into college, which I
fear for that, man. I fear for that, man. They've got the world that they're in for as adults is not going to be anything what you and I grew up with. It's totally different, and I will say this is not. I can't imagine it being good. I mean, look at the '80s that we lived through, for crying out loud. The '80s to me were a fantastic decade to live through. '80s and early '90s and late '70s even. What a time to be a kid and grow up. You know, like I said before, internet, music was fantastic. You know, people, you know, just had a good time. Everything was about having a good time. I mean, that was like Van Halen. Van Halen was the party, the poster child for having a good time, right? And that's what their music lended to. And they opened the door. They paved the way for that with other bands, you know, Poison coming in or Def Leppard or whoever. And it was all about having a good time. And it's now everybody's too serious. Everybody's so serious. And it's like, dude, stop taking yourself so serious. People think that they're woke. Oh, we're woke. You know, it's just like, I got a good example, and I'm going to put this up on the board here. With the Black Lives Matter movement, people are getting way too serious about this, but check this out. I actually made a comment about this, but this Lucasfilms and Disney and other people are posting this that says, we stand against racism. We stand for inclusion. We stand with our fellow Black employees, storytellers, creators, and the entire Black community. We must unite and speak out. Duh. Okay, why do you need to post that? Why do you feel like you need to post that? Why is that not the default stance of every company in this country? And if you don't have that stance, you should be posting, well, we don't agree with this stuff. Right. But they felt like they had to post that For what? To feel included, to show that they're
Yeah,
woke, whatever.
I think nowadays it's almost companies have to state the obvious, but just as you're talking about as far as Black Lives Matter, there's some people I saw, and just like you are and myself, we're connected to a lot of people on
Yeah.
social media. I mean, between my personal page and then I have, a very large amount of people following me on my musician page. That's Mark Anthony, Solo and Friends. but
Nice plug, good plug.
but the thing, what was I again? I just almost lost my train of thought here for a moment. But now there are people posting that Black Lives Matters is a terrorist group. And it's just like, it's like you got it. And people who are just fighting so hard to find anything they can to post it to say, hey, there's no racism in this country. Or, I had it hard too. Of course, me and you surely weren't privileged. We haven't had the easiest backgrounds growing up.
And I was discriminated too. I mean, for like when having long hair, I can't tell you how many times I was crossing the street and someone locked their doors because I crossed the street and I had long hair.
But that was choice. But we didn't have that. We didn't have that extra thing added on to it.
No, I get that. 100%.
And that's what people just got to realize. Nobody's really saying that. Look, you just because you're white or because you're this or whatever, if you were born with a silver spoon in your life, yeah, you probably had a privileged life. But there's a lot of people we've known who have had parents, even, like my father passed away when I was young in a car accident, but you have people whose fathers might have been abusive or an alcoholic, or there was the father wasn't around or the mother left and the mother wasn't around. But we don't have that extra thing added on, which obviously can make a great difference. I mean, we've seen it all in our own lives, and I'm surely never going to sit and say, "Hey, I understand how you feel," because I don't know that. It doesn't matter what I read or what anybody tells me. So
I understand what they mean by when they say white privilege, because I don't think that they're saying that we were rich and had everything handed to us and stuff like that. But I think they were just saying that people didn't look at us differently. But again, I'm not equating me having long hair and getting prejudged the same as being racist, because like you said, yeah, it was my choice. But it's still, someone looks at you and thinks that you're going to carjack them just because you have long hair. They're prejudging you. That it was hurtful. So I can imagine, and I could cut my hair and eliminate that right away. They can't change the color of their skin.
Well, go ahead and do that, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that's exactly why I went bald, because
if you would have had your long hair, if you would have been wearing some spandex, they probably wouldn't have been as afraid of you.
Yeah, who knows? But it might have been scarier. Who knows? But I get what they're saying. I mean, the privilege is the fact that someone doesn't look at me and say and wonder, if am I a good one? Am I a bad one? Where people are probably going to look at the black people and say, is this a good black person or is this a bad black person? Whatever. It's just like Joe Biden when he says, poor people are just as bright and intelligent as white kids. I'm like, what? What kind of idiotic thing is that to say? Because you're automatically coming at this from a standpoint that poor people are black. But I sometimes can't blame him, because that's what he grew up with. He grew up in the segregated era where, when he was a kid, that's just how you treated people. The blacks were different, and the Democrats were some of the biggest opponents to civil rights and everything. And they didn't want the Civil Rights Act to have. So I get that. But as a politician, he should have progressed over the years, and he shouldn't be harboring those feelings anymore, especially when you're running for president. But again, I understand what they're saying by white privilege. And I think that I understand that the people say, well, there's no such thing as white privilege, but there is, because we're not looking at it from a black person's perspective.
Right. I just don't like when I'm starting to see people out there trying to do everything they can to say that there's not a problem.
Right.
And that to me, when I see somebody fight so hard to do that, tells me they might be part of the problem. They might be part of the problem.
Well, it's harder. It's harder for me. It's harder for me. And I know you have some of the same feelings of me in this area. but it's harder for me to, really get down into deep talk about racism because I didn't grow up that way. That's not who I am. I don't look at people by the color of their skin. I have a lot of black friends. I have a lot of, people that, friends in the Middle Eastern, whatever. I don't look at people based on their ethnicity or the background or the color of the skin or whatever like that. I'm judging you whether you're a good person or a jackass. You know what I mean?
An ass is an ass.
An ass is an ass. It
Doesn't
doesn't matter what color
how
of skin
old,
you
how
are.
young, what color, what education, whatever. An ass is an ass.
So I sometimes have a hard time, either defending it or whatever the case may be, that, that's just not my world. So I can't get into the world of a racist and look at that no more than I can go into the world of a black person and look at things through that perspective. Right. And I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure it exists. It 100% exists. But the other thing I wanted to say real quick, and we'll take a quick break, is not all things that you see, especially with like cops, like the whole George Floyd incident. There's no way to tell if that was racially motivated because racism is in the heart of a person, right? You can even look at the history of somebody and say, okay, well, he has a history of this, that, and the other thing. I still don't know that is proof of racism. The guy could just be a jackass. He could just be a jerk, and could just be full of loving the ability to have power over people because he's a cop. That doesn't mean that it's a racist thing. So, bad cop doesn't equal racist cop. But, not all people that are prejudiced are racist, but all people who are racist are prejudiced. You can be prejudiced against something and not be a racist, but it's impossible to be a racist and not be prejudiced. So, I just want to clear. I think people oftentimes they want to go to that racist card because it's hurtful and it sounds mean, and you want to hurt somebody because you've been hurt, whatever. So it's easier just to throw out that they're a racist. But that's such an egregious thing because you have to really know a person's heart and how they feel about people to know whether they're a true racist or not.
Yeah, unfortunately, that poor guy's not going to have the opportunity to find that out.
Right, exactly, and we'll never know. And I don't know that it matters at this point in time. He was senselessly murdered. And thank God that there will be punishments handed out. And if they get anything less than life imprisonment, then I think that there will be another uprising in this country. And right now, this topic is getting too serious for the Blabber Brain show. So why don't we take a little break and we'll reset. We'll come back with a new topic.
Blabber Brains.
All right, welcome back to Blabber Brains. And for you, that was a very short break. For us, we had a chance to reset. Oh, there it is. Something was missing in the first segment. I knew it. So,
okay, now I'm ready, baby.
Look like you're ready to do some gardening. Is what you're ready to do.
Oh no, this is my music. This is my musician hat.
Your Okie from Muskogee hat.
Oh well, you know how Slash has his whole hat thing. I'm getting rid of the cowboy hat, and I'm going with this.
That's not Slash Cole. Slash would not approve of that hat.
Oh, it did. You never knew that hat was going to be cool at the beginning. It just worked that way.
I mean, you look like you should be out in the rice fields or something like that. I don't know.
Little Spanish guitar, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm taking a siesta.
Well, maybe if you had a handlebar mustache, that hat might work. I think you maybe start working on that.
Oh, this thing will choke me anyhow, but I use this to cut grass. It was bought for me as a joke from Home Depot a few years ago for $1.99, and the neighbors get to see me wear it every time I cut the grass. They think I've lost my mind, but they know.
For those of you who think I was being racially insensitive by saying he should be out in the rice fields, that's the kind of hats they wear out there. It doesn't matter who's out there working. That's the type of hats they wear. So
it's nice when it's nice to keep the sun off you. Although it would be a great hat to win at Kennywood when you're at that one game where they could have the choice, either guess your weight within 5 pounds, your height or your age or something like that. They give out these stupid hats like that, but mine was a gift.
Oh, well, either way. It's just
I got hat head, but oh well.
That's okay. You had before we began. So, anyways, and one other thing that's kind of on my mind is the let's talk about music a little bit since that's in our blood, and that could have been our careers at one point in time, and in today's day and age, I'm thankful that it's not. As much as I miss it, it's rough as a musician now, man. Those guys aren't getting paid. That was their only job. It's not like they did that on the side. There's professional musicians touring the world, touring the country, and for all you people that think that the bands are out there are all uber rich, they're not all Def Leppards or U2s or anybody else that's like they could retire right now and never need another dime. Majority of bands are out there touring. They need that money. They tour for a living. They don't have another side job, and they don't have a stash of money sitting in their bank account. This is hurting them, man, and they can't get any restitution or any bailout from the government or anything like that. Now I know there was talk that they're looking at people in the music industry to help them out, and I hope that they do or that they have, and I just haven't heard about it yet. But yeah, what do you think? I mean, it's got to be hard.
Yeah, no doubt, especially for the smaller artists. It's one thing Motley Crue and Poison and Def Leppard not
Yeah, they're
going out
set.
on
Those
tour.
guys are set.
But one thing I wanted to bring up, that I made a mistake on when I listened to the last episode that we did, and I was talking to you and Tom regarding a country band,
Yeah.
and I see why he was so shocked when I said that it was a new band a few years ago. They had a few modern country hits, and when I looked up their albums, their sales, it was not 165, but I said 165, but I meant 165K.
Oh.
And that's probably what really rattled his world.
Right.
Although 165 is pretty damn low too.
For today, yeah, exactly.
But there goes a typical band like that, like you were talking about as far as making money. It seems like the average, because I know I'm going to be going into the studio, and my stuff's going to be, my EP is going to be free to anybody who wants it, and who knows, nobody might want it, but they're going to have it for. I'm giving it to anybody who wants it to share it, whatever.
Well, you'll have one fan. I'll
I mean,
sure to get
the
it,
electronic version, the digital version will be free. If you want a real CD, it will be probably just maybe $2 or $3.
I don't even have anything to play a CD on anymore.
But the thing is, though, when you start looking into the streaming services, because you have to put out there if you want somebody to hear about you or listen to you, it's seeming to be about 7,000 plays equals a penny. So how the hell is a musician going to make any money? So say you're successful and nowadays maybe you sell 120,000 copies. What's that, about $120,000? If you're lucky, that goes to the band or to the performer, and that's it. And of course you get these, maybe you have a few million downloads from Google Play or iTunes, and people are listening to it on there or on Sirius Satellite or Spotify or whatever. There's another smooth $200 or $300 in your pocket.
Right.
I mean,
I'm glad we're not getting paid for the show and on the same scale. Otherwise, we would have earned maybe like 1/3000th of a penny.
Hey, we're earning just as much as a lot of bands out there that have a hit on the radio.
This is true. This is true.
We're doing just as well as them, and I couldn't imagine having to go on tour, especially a big tour. Say you are Motley Crue and you're on tour, and I mean, come on, they're older guys. Vince Neil, we talked about it before. He looks like he already was ahead of the whole Corona curve. He was packing on weight years earlier before this. And the thing is, well, Mike, you know how it is. If you're going on tour and you're going on the road, you are coming across so many different people that have been with somebody else, around somebody else. Every meal that you have, everything that's handed to you is coming from somebody you might not even know. Who knows who they've been around?
Right.
Around fans, the opening band, the people at the stadiums, everything that goes on, sleeping at a hotel, having a meal, having food catered and brought to you. I mean, you're taking quite a risk, even if you think this isn't that big of a deal. It's still taking quite a risk versus me and you or more so you than me. You go into work, your family's out, but that's not even. It's all the hands that are touched between the crew and everything. Can you imagine you have a whole crew on the road, somebody gets sick, now everybody's is stuck there for 14 days to quarantine.
Right.
I mean, it's got to be a nightmare. And there's a regional musician who's had some albums out. I'm sure he's probably not listening to us, but somebody new I connected to, David Christian, who is out in, do believe he's stationed in Nevada, but he plays in Nevada and Iowa and Wyoming. And he's kind of a country artist, really folky, really good. And he hasn't been able to do any shows the last few months. And he'll go on he was going on, now he's actually having a couple of shows taking place. But every week they were letting him do this thing on Facebook. He would go on Facebook for about an hour and 15 minutes, and it was open spaces. And sometimes it would be a hair salon that would let him come in, or it was a movie theater, and he'd set up his computer and just his acoustic guitar and talk and sing and play. And of course, he'd have his thing. He didn't want to push him much, but like some of these people are doing online, to go get you could tip them through PayPal or one of the other formats just to try, because that's what that guy does full time. And he told me he was a teacher for years, and he's been doing music full time for 15 years. And he's not a guy who's getting anything but a little bit of regional airplay, has success in that region, but it's not like even when things are great, the guy's making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Yeah, well, so Randy Jackson from Zebra, I'm sure you know. I mean, he was kind of doing the same thing. He would be playing live performances on Facebook, but he'd have his PayPal account up there to say, accepting tips or whatever like that. Because again, as Zebra wasn't ever a huge band, but they had their time. They probably made a decent living at one time, and they're still playing and making money and stuff like that. But when that stuff ends, a guy like that, he's in his 60s and is not touring and not making any money. What are you going to do? It's just and just all the concerts got canceled. Now the weird thing is that they're starting to put shows back on, but yet others are still canceled. So it's kind of odd.
Well, I think from what I was reading something about that, but they can limit like a Kenny Chesney concert. You have the stadium pretty much sold out.
Right.
If not already, it would have been that day. There's no way for people to be tailgating. I think what you're starting to see is the smaller bands that are going out to Jurgles. Well, nobody outside of Western Pennsylvania knows of Jurgles, but some of these places that maybe they hold 500 to 1,000 people, and these small shows or regional shows, they're only filling so many. They're not letting everybody pile in as sardines, and it makes me wonder. So that's the reason why you're seeing the smaller shows take place. But it's making me wonder if some of these concerts in due time, maybe that we're going to draw between 5,000 or 7,000 people, if they're going to be trying to although it'd be a higher cost to take them into a place that maybe holds generally 15 or 17,000 seats for a concert.
Right.
Space. I just don't know how you do, especially with the public restrooms. Go to a concert with 20,000 people and see what's going on in a restroom. I mean, it's just everybody butt to gut. You're peeing, nobody's washing their hands. You run out of soap. There's toilets leaking. Somebody's sick.
All of us has been through that, and we're still here and we're still alive. So
well, it's a little different. That would spread like wildfire on a hot summer night. It's tough. I just hope that things advance and people.
They all do. I mean, none of these strands and stuff like this, like H1N1 and whatever, they seem to have either like a shelf life. They eventually kind of die out. They come around maybe a couple of times and die out. I mean, I know influenza hasn't. It's here, but that's the other thing. They keep saying everything will be fine once they come up with a vaccine for for the COVID. And I'm like, but they have a vaccine for the flu, and we still lose 50, 60,000 people a year from that. So,
Yeah,
you
it's a
know,
different it's a different thing though. I mean, because look now, who knows? That nobody knows. This thing could end up grown into something else. Once they solve this problem, there will be another
yeah,
problem. But if they're saying that it seems at this point, it doesn't, no guarantee that once you have it, that it's very unlikely for you to get it again.
right,
That's not how the flu works. So
right.
it's something with
Yeah, you
it.
can get the flu
So
over and over again, right?
yeah, so the vaccine may be able to do something, but I want to see. It's just that usually it does take years because of all the trials, speeding it through. You hate to go be the first one in line, and then 2 months later, there's people getting severely sick from it
Right.
or being hospitalized and dying. It's a mess. I don't like wearing the mask and doing everything I can. I surely don't want to get anybody sick more so than me getting sick. And I guess we'll just have to see what happens. I mean,
Always,
that's
part
it.
of me always like, the smart ass in me like has thought about like putting my mask on like I always do and going into dining or something like that. And the whole time I'm there, just like hacking up a storm, like
You don't want to do that.
while you got the mask on, like, well, hey, and it's okay. I got my mask on. It's okay, everybody. I got my
That's
mask.
only a 60% effectiveness there. You're not going to do
I
it.
know.
I started changing things up because I shouldn't say I hear, and I also see people saying, why are people wearing masks in their car? So what
Yeah.
I do, I wear it, I'll wave at people. And I don't want to wear it in a car. Sometimes I have,
Yeah.
if I'm in 2 minutes, if I'm going to be going into another, driving a little more down the road, and I have sunglasses and a hat on, because I use those ones that I used to run in cold weather that are not the ones that hook at the ear, but they have the elastic, they're the
Right.
ones that are comfort masks, they call them, but they have the little metal thing there. It's such a pain in the ass to take everything off, then put it back on. So I leave it on, but now I leave it on. I leave the house. If there's neighbors looking at me, I put on and I wave like this. If I'm at the light, I'll go like, just because it seems to piss people off. I thought about when there's actually a time that they allow us to go into cigar bars, just cutting a hole in one. Cigar. I think cigar smoke is going to be I think our cigar bars are going to be last to open because people are
Yeah, I mean,
blowing germs out into the atmosphere.
Rocky Patel has said, and they're not ready to open up just yet, but only because I mean, they've got the green light; they could actually open up, but their establishment's not ready yet. They're still making sure that the building and their establishment is up to CDC codes and that their employees are all educated and the protocols and everything. But if they had already done that prior, they would be ready to open up on Friday.
I think they want to see what happens. I think that it's probably so much more work for a cigar bar because you're purposely
right.
blowing out. It's not like when we sit here and we're talking. No, we're just breathing.
Well, the water droplets aren't in the steam in the smoke that you're breathing out. It's not like it's in your breath. COVID doesn't get released in your breath. It gets released by the droplets that are in your mouth and in your body. So like when you do cough and you do expel that spit, or if you're talking and you're spitting while you're talking, that's where that gets transferred. And they even said now that after they've had time to examine it, that like they realize that it doesn't live on surfaces like they said. Like so,
it does, but it's not as easily caught. I mean, it's
right?
Still,
it doesn't transfer as easily that way. So and like we still wipe down our groceries when we get home, even though they said you don't have to anymore. We still do just as a precaution.
Yeah, next week they'll say something else.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like eggs and bacon and meat, right? One day eggs, bacon, and meat are great for you. Eat them up, and then the next week it's like, oh wait, we were mistaken. It's all bad. And then the next week, oh wait, no, new report came out. Eggs, bacon, and meat are perfectly good for you. Hey, make up your damn minds. It's.
I just think they don't know.
Every expert in the world has come out with their own theory about that, why this was a hoax or why this was wrong or not as bad. Most people aren't saying it's a hoax, but they're saying it's not as bad as what they originally thought it was. And the other thing that really looked bad, really looked bad, is when the CDC had to admit that the numbers were fudged, and the state had to admit like Pennsylvania had to admit that some of the numbers were fudged. And that, what prompted that though was the coroner from Armstrong County when he said, look, I submitted that we had 2 deaths here and all of a sudden there's 6 in the database. How did that happen? I'm the official guy that says how many people died from COVID. And then, the CDC had to later come out and say, well, if someone died and they had COVID, we just said that they died from COVID.
Right.
Well, and that's little dishonest from that level, because I understand states doing it because they're doing it for political reasons.
Oh,
Well,
there's money, but
there's money. But as I'm saying, there's
money
two
left
different
on
angles.
there's money left on the table.
Right. There's 2 different angles. Number one, they're getting more money from the federal government to supplement those deaths. But the other thing is to try to hurt Trump politically. So it's really dishonest when you're fudging the numbers. So when we see that there's 100,000 deaths here in the United States, how many of those were really people that died from COVID? Did they die from COVID or just with COVID? Because that's what the CDC said. They said if they died, even if they died from a gunshot wound, they said there were some people that that died from a gunshot that they got labeled as dying from COVID because they tested positive for COVID. So that leads to another question. What are they doing with anybody that comes through the coroners? Are they testing them for COVID-19? So if a guy gets stabbed and dies and he comes in, are they saying test him for COVID? And if he comes up with COVID, then he said, well, just mark down that he died from COVID.
Well, yeah, and there was, and I'm sure there's some people that died from it that they didn't know that they had it. That probably was going. Right. I know somebody who was out in who's originally from Johnstown, lived here for many years, moved back to Johnstown. She died back in late February, and she had the flu, turned in supposedly pneumonia. She went in the hospital, and then a week later, taking her off life support, and she died. She could have had it too. I'm not worried about the dying aspect of it. Look, we've lost a couple. The company I work for is a Fortune 500 company. We lost some people. We've lost a few people over now. Thankfully, it was after they weren't in the office.
Right,
Everybody was already. I mean, I work for a technology company, so no, they were not in the office. I mean, they just started opening things back up in Arizona, letting our offices and stuff not that long ago. And there's people that, I mean, it's now they see it messes with your heart. And, there's been some people probably died of heart attack that might have had that. We're talking about the whole Black Lives Matter. The coroner said that even though they're not saying that's the cause of death, but he had it in his system too. Now, he might not have had symptoms.
He might have been asymptomatic, right?
Yeah. Or he might have started feeling sick a few days later. But my cousin, one of his, a police officer, he knew, a young guy, good shape, all of a sudden got sick like that he thought he had the cold or flu. And it was like the next day they were rushing him to the hospital in an ambulance and pumping all kind of drugs into him. And it was pretty bad. I had pneumonia, was it maybe 4 years ago? And that was pretty bad. And I'm in good health. I run, I lift weights and stuff, and I'm in good shape. But that was rough. I don't even want to go through that again. I mean, I wasn't on my deathbed or anything. Look, I just don't want to get anybody sick. I'm gonna play it safe. It's not that I'm afraid of everything. It's just that I'm considerate to other people and all that. And people can do whatever they want. But if you go back and you look at a lot of the old stuff from that whole big thing with the flu back in 1917 and 1918, there's the whole thing back then about not wearing masks. There was groups getting together. There was marches, and they have photos of people from going to baseball games and stuff, and they were all in the stands wearing their masks. But the same thing went on with everybody fighting. It's no big deal. It's my rights. It's my rights. And then what happens? The next wave comes in a few months later, and then the death rate goes through the roof. And you got to remember the population's probably 3 or 4 times more dense now than it was back then.
Right. Yeah,
I just hope that.
Like a million people died.
Yeah, I mean, so now you'd be talking about maybe 3-4 million people. And
medication stuff is in the medical industry is a lot better than it was back then too.
Right,
so
but if it gets overrun with things, and then there's a problem. I'm just hoping that they, if it's not some really effective, safe shot that you could have, you could have as a vaccination. Look, it's the same thing. You remember for AIDS. I mean, geez, the best thing they could do with all the drugs that they had was extend people's life for 2 or 3 weeks. And now you have people who've had AIDS for 15, 20 years that are still alive and working. And I mean, yeah, they have side effects and are taking $1,500 worth of medication a month. But
well, they don't have AIDS. They were HIV positive.
But I mean, it just never. They're able to. It's not a death sentence anymore.
Right, but I'm just saying there's if you have AIDS, that you're going to die with AIDS. But if you're HIV positive, that doesn't mean that you're going to die. They can manage that. So,
well, Mike, years ago when I worked in a mail order pharmacy, and we were the only company in the country, we were designated as the only people with this drug called Crixivan. And it was the first one that came out as a super drug. And you had people's T cell counts that were at 4. They were basically just a sneeze away from death. And they got the medication in time, and they would call you back a couple months later, and their T cell count was closer to normal levels. Right. So there were people that were really sick with AIDS that have taken these medications and have gotten better and have gone, and they keep, and that Crixivan, that's like an old age. I mean, that's still being prescribed, but there's better drugs than that out there. If our medical professionals could come up with something it took them a while though, to combat something as bad as that. This isn't as bad as that.
Right.
And I do think that in time, hopefully not a long time, they'll come up with something, if it's not a vaccine, but some sort of treatment that you could take that's going to minimize, not so much, I mean, yeah, the risk of death, but the biggest thing, people getting really sick and passing it off to other people. I'm sure there's probably idiots out there that have it, have been diagnosed for it, have symptoms, and are out there shopping and don't even.
I'm sure. And
that's another problem.
Whether they know it, and then there's asymptomatic people who don't know it, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can't, look at a mark on their head and say, well, he's got it, he doesn't have it. I mean, it's just, it's just what it is what it is.
I think there's people that are sick and know they have it that are probably still not quarantining themselves. I mean, some people are just assholes. I mean, I understand, but if you have something like that, you should be away. Hell, if you have a really bad stomach virus, you should be away from people.
And we still don't know whether this is something that's going to, die in the heat in the summer, like the flu. Some people say it is, some people say it's not. Could very well. I mean, one thing's for sure, we're at least as far as our state goes, we're opening back up. Although, with our idiot governor, going green doesn't really mean a whole lot, because there's still all these same restrictions. And someone called the governor's office and said, well, what's after green? Because there's still all these restrictions. And they're like, well, nothing. So as long as Wolf is in office, these restrictions are going to remain in place. And they're like, well, maybe if there's a vaccine, the vaccine's not going to do anything. The vaccine is going to give people a good peace of mind, is what it is. And, again, with the flu shot, there are people who still get sick and die from the flu, and they've had the flu shot. So what good is it going to do?
Well, I don't know, but they got to ease into things. I mean, do I think that we could have started this a little earlier than we did? Yes, but I just don't want to see all this being, kind of a shut in. I just would hate to see it go all out the window in like a month or two.
Right.
That would be terrible. I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to make sure to be respectful to other people around me, and people can do whatever they want. I'm going to do what I think is best for me, and that's and we'll see what happens. Hopefully the people who think that this will not get won't get worse again, and we'll just have cases and things will be sort of as they stand now, which aren't great, but it's not through the roof where they're running out of hospital beds and stuff. I mean, it's like a lose-lose situation. You go this route, then somebody else here is screwed. You go this way. It just
to bring things back around. I mean, I can't wait until there are live shows again. I mean, my sister got me tickets for King and Country. They were supposed to play here the day after my birthday, which would have been, so that was my birthday gift. And then they postponed it to June, and then they postponed it indefinitely. They didn't cancel it. They just said they're rescheduling it. They don't know when they're going to be back in town. And I think a lot of tours are doing that right now. They're starting to reschedule their tours, which is good. So hopefully things will, and you know what I really hate? I hate the term new normal. It's a horrible term, the new normal. And people are just settled. They're like, okay, well, this is the new normal. There shouldn't be a new normal. We're going to get through this. We've gotten through every other epidemic. I don't know that we're going to live the rest of our lives with having to wear masks everywhere we go. I don't think so. I don't think that's the thing. So this is not a new normal. This is a temporary pause on the normal.
The normal for now.
It's the normal for now. It's not a new normal. So I wish people would stop using that term. It's really irritating.
Does it? I don't care what they call it. They could call it free pizza as far as I'm concerned.
I would rather call it free pizza.
I got to do the same damn thing. I'm going to do the same damn thing regardless. But if you want to see some concerts, what we need to do is go to concerts for bands like some of the B and C level 80s bands that are only going to draw 200 people at Jurgle, because it's not going to matter.
Right,
anyhow,
we get to have a cigar before the show.
Although that cigar bar is going to be how many people are they going to stick in that thing?
That's a small box there, man.
I mean, they need a bigger cigar bar. It would do great. It does great as it is, and it's like the size of my basement, including the bar, including the counter and the bar and everything.
Right. Well, speaking of which, I think, maybe we got to get, Sean McNabb on the show or something like that. So
yeah, that would be cool. He's a cigar guy.
Yeah. And he was a cool guy to hang out with. So maybe we got to get him on the show. We talked about before, Dennis Miller. So he's a Pittsburgh boy. Maybe he'd come on and help some local boys get this show kicked off the ground and stuff like that. So
either that or just hang up on us.
Right. Well, hey, everybody's got to start somewhere, right? We've got to start somewhere. I think that we have a positive start. It's not like we don't have any followers. We've got, we're off to a decent start. So we're hoping that each time we have one of these episodes that we pick up a few more listeners. So if you're enjoying what you're hearing, especially tonight with just me and Mark, sometimes it's pretty entertaining. Sometimes it gets a little serious, but that's fine. That's what Blabber Brains is all about. We talk about the subjects that matter to us, that matter to you. That's why you tune in. That's why you listen to us. We're going to have special guests coming up. I can't name some of them right now. We have some people on the slate, but I don't know exactly when they're going to be on. So you'll just have to stay tuned and hang in there. So we'll say good night for tonight. It was some good chatting with you there, Big M. And I hope you found our talk informative, entertaining, and if nothing else, you got a good laugh here and there. Looking at our goofy faces or some of the stupid things we had to say. And I'm sure somewhere along the line, one of us stuck our foot in our mouths and someone will point it out, but that's fine. I'm willing to live with that. So
yeah, I mean, look at like I said earlier, if you talk long enough, sooner or later, something stupid is going to come out of your mouth.
I'm living with those consequences. I'm fine with that. So until next time, cheers, America. We'll see you next time on Blabber Brain Show.
Blabber Brains.